8:46, let's take you through the papers with the political consultant Emma Burnell and the podcaster Lewis Oakley. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Let's talk high-profile politicians, Lewis, on the Times.
Yes, Fiona Wilson. Have you had her on the show yet?
Oh, she's very well known.
Very good.
So there is basically a poll that they've done, and they put some fake politicians' name in amongst the Labour front benchers, and some of the fake names were rated as names people recognise more than the actual front benchers, which I know is quite funny, but I think it's actually also quite alarming because we probably are heading towards a Labour government. And I know that when it comes to voting, you know, if you're going by the book, you should vote for your local politician on the local issues that they stand for. But we don't. We vote for who is actually going to be in the seats of power. So these shadow front benchers are actually quite important. And if we don't even know their names, what we don't know is their values and what they stand for, because they can put whatever they want in their manifestos. But if something like a pandemic happens, you want to know the values and the morals of the people that are going to be in that high, intense situation making those decisions. And I think the fact that people can't do that for the Labour front bench is worrying.
But wasn't there also a Tory in there?
Yeah.
So there was
called Henry Thorpe.
Henry Thorpe. So what was interesting, I think, is that this Fiona Wilson got a net positive, of quite high net positive.
Something like 42% of people.
And Henry Thorpe got quite a low, was in the minus numbers. So I think when you have generic X or Y MP, it probably tells you quite a lot about where people are thinking about the party as a whole. Look, yes, it would be...
How would you work that out?
Because if you're literally just saying...
How do you work that out? Most people... What that means is most people are looking at Henry Thorpe and saying, I don't know who that is, I can't comment.
But if they also don't know who Fiona Wilson is, what they're doing is projecting generic MP.
They think they do.
But they also think they know who Henry Thorpe is and they don't like him. This is what I'm saying. You can extrapolate from that how people feel about the two parties more than you can. Now, look, let's be honest. Most of us don't know who the Conservative front benches are, other than the really high-profile ones. You know, I'm really active in politics. I come on this show, talk about politics. I had to Google who the Transport Secretary was the other day. You know, we don't generally know, beyond the top four, the Home Secretary, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Prime Minister, we don't tend to know who these people are, particularly in the last few years when they've been sort of like on a merry-go-round.
Yes, they've moved around a lot. But isn't it understandable that you wouldn't know many of the Labour front bench at the moment? Because they just haven't been in power, so they're not interviewed as often, they don't get as much airtime.
No, but I think that we all know how this election is predicted to go, and I actually think that the problem is Labour's whole strategy has been say nothing and watch the Tories fall over, and what that's cost them is that people don't know who they are and what they stand for.
But that doesn't matter if they're going to win. Well, does it? Ultimately, if you play in that game, it doesn't matter if people don't know.
Yeah,
well, this is like true. They're going to win anyway.
People used to criticise the Arsenal for being boring, but they won 1-0 a lot, and that, at the end of the day, is what mattered to the fans.
Yeah.
And Paul's going to be so proud of me for using a football analogy when I know nothing about football.
No, it is. You'll get a gold sticker when you get out. The sticker with the Times, Emma. Can we have a look at this driver's story?
Yeah.
We prefer buttons.
We prefer buttons to touchscreens, which I totally get, because, I mean, I don't know about you, maybe your fancy foldy phone that we saw in the last segment actually is more reactive. But sometimes when you're using your touchscreen, you're like, I mean, particularly if you go to one of those restaurants where you have to now use a touchscreen, you're like banging on it because it's not that sensitive. And it can take your eyes off the road, whereas if you've just got your standard whistles and bells and buttons, it's much, much easier. You know exactly where it is. So I drive an old manual car. Yeah, I've never looked at the gear stick because I know exactly where I have to go to do all of that stuff. I was saying to Lewis in the break, that's probably the last manual I'll ever drive, because when I upgrade, I'll upgrade to an electric car, and they're all automatic.
Yeah, it's a bit of as someone that is finding it challenging to pass his driving test at the moment. I don't need any more buttons. That's too much.
How many times have you taken the test?
3.
Really?
It's not my fault, though, because I actually can drive.
Oh, can you?
Yeah, I can. The problem is that every time you fail, it's 6 months until there's a slot for you to take the next one. So then you can't afford to do all the driving lessons. So then you start up again a few months before.
So are you learning on a manual?
Yeah, manual.
You are. Why bother? Why not just go straight for an automatic? You'd probably pass.
Because if you pass on a manual, then you can always go back to driving it. But if you pass on an automatic, then you can't ever drive a manual.
Yeah, but just as we heard there, I mean, there are going to be fewer and fewer manual cars around anyway.
But if you go somewhere else around the world where maybe they have...
They're all automatic.
Well, I don't know. I'm doing it this way. That was logic when I started 5 years ago.
Yes, you have to win.
5 years. Oh, come on.
That was a joke.
Come on.
It's not really been 5
Come
years.
on. I quite like a touch screen. I've got to say, in the
On your car?
Yeah.
What do you operate by touchscreen on your car?
Well, everything.
Oh, really?
It's all touch in the car.
Oh.
On my Pivi Pro, I think it's like one of these, and you just... all you sat nav.
So you're touching with your left hand
Yeah.
when you should be having your...
No,
Those
obviously.
handles.
Yeah, 10 to 2, Stephen.
Only when it's safe to do so.
Yeah.
Plus, you can do it. It's got Alexa in it, so you can tell Alexa to do it for you as well. Because you wouldn't like that either, would you?
Well, the problem is, imagine I'm having an interesting conversation with somebody and about how they should really be becoming more left-wing. The car will start veering off.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, is anyone... Yeah, oh, there you go.
I argue with my car because some of the things I haven't got a touch screen, but I've got things where you can talk to it and ask it to do things. And so you're driving along and you say, I don't know, alter the air conditioning or something, and it said calling Anne Widdecombe, and I said no. It actually said calling Anne Widdecombe and started to call her. Said, no, stop, and I couldn't figure out how to stop it.
Oh dear.
She was apparently in my contact.
That's very special, I have to say. Emma, the Telegraph, NASA's sending the essence of humanity to the moon.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So it's similar to... it should be, shouldn't it? Ode to humanity. But it's similar to the Voyager thing where we put some of the things that we are, the highest levels of human achievement out into space to go forever and ever.
And recordings of whales.
Recordings of whales song, and I think...
Mozart was in there,
Mozart, yeah. And so this is very similar to that. We're putting some of our highest achievements in terms of mathematics, the arts, culture, onto these sapphire discs that will be able to sort of be on the moon. So it's kind of...
Why on the moon?
Well, if it all goes horribly wrong, which, let's face it, we've been not having the cheeriest of mornings, then the moon is where we're most likely to colonise first. So we're sending our best first.
Right.
Yeah, I like this. I like the kind of, we've got a little bit of it stored up in space, because like you say, it might not all go our way, so at least there'll be some record that we were here and
we did some good stuff.
We did some good stuff that we put on these discs.
If aliens are coming from outer space and they look at the Earth, this beautiful, blue and green ball floating there, they're not going to say, oh, hang on a minute, let's go to this boring little moon first.
I don't
Well, it
think
might
it's
not
for
be
the
blue and
aliens,
green
Anne, I
when
think it's for us.
they arrive.
Okay.
I guess is the worry. Yeah. Might be
The Voyager was for the aliens. The Voyager was us saying, look, this is the best of humanity. We're going to send it right out there. I think we've lost track of it now.
Yeah.
No, we have not.
Have we not?
No.
There are two of them as well, aren't there? They're doing slightly...
And they are, therefore saying this is who we are at our best to aliens, whereas this is, I think, for us.
OK. Oh, well, there you go. Sapphire. Very nice too. Thank you both. Been good to see you this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's the weather.